Welcome to the Faith First podcast. We are part of First Lutheran Church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, community of faith where we say we discover more together. My name is Pastor Craig Brown, and this is episode 52 on May 3rd, 2024. Today we are talking about prioritizing youth and young families everywhere, and we have Pastor Katie on to talk with us about that, and you can find out in today's episode what item helps Pastor Katie to take her kids with her everywhere. Also, Maddy Newhouse will talk about an opportunity for you to spring forward in your faith. It's all just ahead of us. We are glad you're along with us. Let's go ahead and get started and put our faith first. It's time to find out what's brewing around First Lutheran Church, and my special guest today is our Ministry Engagement Coordinator, Maddy Newhouse. I can't call you the new Ministry Engagement Coordinator anymore, can I?
I don't think so. It's been a couple months now.
Yeah,
so.
I think you're getting. What do you like about the job now that you started in on it for a few months?
I have loved literally all the people that I've met and interacted with. It has been such a genuine connection that I've built with so many people, and it really has brought me a lot of peace and happiness, which I didn't realize I was lacking. So
you seem to be having a good time.
Yes, I really have been.
I mean, your job is to plan parties and get people to get involved, and that's not only is your skill set, but it's kind of fun to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
So can you talk about this weekend? What do we have ahead of us?
So this weekend, I'm having what I'm calling a mini ministry engagement fair. I'm making a big bulletin board, and we're going to be launching the ministry engagement survey at the 9 o'clock service on Sunday. And I am hoping to survey as many members of the congregation, both children from elementary age through as old. I think our oldest member is 108 now.
Yep, Don Johnson, 108.
Yep. And I just want to find out what people are interested in doing, what they're already taking part of, and what ways we can grow different ministries as well to people's interests and faith needs. So
a lot of people may ask, why are we doing this? And the obvious answer is, well, we need help. But that's not really how we're coming at it, is it, Maddy? It's more, Jesus tells us we should help one another. We should, get involved in our community. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. There's not prescriptive to any one person, right? Someone
Correct.
may like this, someone may like that, someone may feel led here. Can you talk a little bit more about what those options are in the survey?
Yeah, so I tried to leave it very open-ended, but also guided. I hope that makes sense as a descriptor. But I went through and kind of did an internal survey of what our different core ministry group bases are. So we have children and families ministry. We have worship volunteers. We have adult ministry, so all of those different things. And then I went through and found out, okay, what are all the different groups or activities that fall under those? And then at the end, you're also asked if there are anything like any special talents or interests that you would like to connect with the church, such as maybe you're a musician and you would like to share your talents in that way, or you're a photographer and you would like to volunteer to take photos at a special event for us, because that's definitely something we always need.
Yeah.
And one really important thing is that I made sure that it would be accessible to all ages, because no matter how old you are, there's always a way that you can interact with your church.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Pastor Steve has been kind of breaking down our ministry segments, like you said, into kind of 4 key areas. He's calling them worship, discipleship, outreach, and community. And really, there's all ways to volunteer in that. We've got great outreach ministries with our Hunger, Housing, Hope, Global Outreach. If you're interested in our SEMP ministry, Saturday Evening Meal Program, feeding people. So if you're kind of one of those social justice warriors and that gets you going in your faith, we've got all kinds of opportunities there. If you're a person that likes telling people about Jesus and evangelizing and getting the word out, we've got all kinds of opportunities there. And I think really worship volunteers are evangelism. I was reading a book the other day that said your strongest evangelists should be your greeters.
Yeah.
Those people that are, the most kind of outgoing and like talking to people and like smiling and like telling people, just getting that feeling about Jesus. You want those at the front doors. And even in the parking lot, if you can get them to work in the parking lot, because that's so important. People's first impressions of a faith community comes in the parking lot, comes at the front door. And so, just opening a door, you don't think it's that big a deal, but it really is. And my heart breaks every time that there's not somebody there because of lack of somebody stepping up. I know there's going to be a lot of people that have that. I see it in them that have that gift, and I'm so glad you're matching this up.
I'm not always here on Wednesday evening, but when I have the opportunity to be seeing those youth that are at the door greeting people just warms my heart.
Yes. Yeah. And doing everything on Wednesday. And we'd love to get them doing everything on Sunday. So, so the survey we're going to be putting out, we're so important that we're talking as a worship team that we're going to carve some time out of the service so people can do it in the service. I know people are a little sketchy about getting their phones out, but we'll give you full permission to get your phones out and take the survey on your phone. We'll also have paper copies, right?
Yep, we're going to seed the pews with them.
Sweet. And then QR codes everywhere that you can just point your phone at and take the survey that way. And then, of course, if you're listening to us and you're not an in-person worshiper, let's say you're an online worshiper or you're just a podcast listener, there are things we want them to take that too, right? Because there are things they can do.
It is linked directly on the homepage of the FLC website.
It's a great point. So if you go to firstlutherancr.org, it's right there on the main page, right under the banner. Can't miss it to take the survey. And like Maddy said, we love to have everyone take it of all ages so we can more get involved in our faith.
Yeah, I'm calling it sowing seeds of service.
Oh, that's a good theme.
Yeah.
I saw you're working on a bulletin board. Was that what you're doing? You had like a little watering can and now that makes sense.
Yep.
So you're going to be out there in the narthex in our entry area.
Yeah.
Right outside of the sanctuary. What time will you be there for folks?
I will be there in between services, so from 10 to 11 o'clock, and I will also be having fresh cookies there as well. So.
Wow. So if you're 11 o'clock worshiper, come a little early, grab a cookie and see Maddy, or you could stick after the 9. If you're a Saturday worshiper, Pastor Katie will be here and she could talk to you.
And the bulletin board will be out for a couple of weeks too, so that you can go and interact with that.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions about that survey, you may not know everything that we've listed. There are not a lot of descriptors. There's just a few words.
Correct.
So if those words don't make sense, they can contact you or just stop by the bulletin board outside of service, and you'll be happy to explain what some of those different opportunities are.
Yeah.
It would be great, Maddy, I think, if everybody could find somewhere to serve and plug in.
Exactly.
Somebody said to me once, you should go to one worship for yourself and you should do another worship or active service for someone else. And what a great model that would be if we could just turn out the church if everyone would do that.
And we have so many great ways at First Lutheran to both serve others while serving an internal need, such as our comfort makers. We have all of these sewers and crafters that come together and make beautiful sewn quilts and other, I guess I would call them fiber arts, that serve not only the First Lutheran community, but the greater community at large.
And then when you ask one of them, they say, yeah, they get a lot out of it because not only they get the feel-good feeling of helping someone else, but there's that camaraderie. And we try to build that into all our groups, don't we? If anyone isn't, if someone's new to an act of service, let's say ushering, you're not just going to throw them to the wolves, right?
No. Once the surveys are all in, I am going to set up some different trainings for different roles and such, and I will also help you get in touch with any of the leadership that you need to get involved with as well.
So we'll take care of you every step of the way.
Yes.
Anything else we may have missed, Maddy?
I just really, really encourage everyone to sit down, and it literally takes 2 minutes to go through. Will and I timed it the other day, and even make sure your little ones to sit down with them and do it too. Because like I said, there's something for everyone, and if there's not something that kind of scratches that itch that you have, I want to grow and expand our different ministry offerings. So let me know what kind of ideas that you have.
There's an other box.
Yes, there is.
So check it and fill it out. Well, thanks for being with us today, Maddy.
Thank you so much for having me, Pastor Craig.
And that's a look what's brewing at First Lutheran Church. All right, it's time to dig into the Word. We've got Pastor Katie here with us, and on the desk, to first announce, on the desk in front of us is a box of colorful lays and props and things, and it's always a party with you.
There you go. And you were so funny. You thought I would ever get rid of this stuff. I always have stuff. By the way, he may have asked me for a disco ball, and I said, "Oh, I have not but one, but three of those." So of course it's all in my stash.
We're having a dance party, Daddy and me, tomorrow night, and you've been helpful with that in lots of ways. But yeah, we have 41
That's awesome.
people signed up, 18 different families, dads and their kids, and we're going to come and have a dance. I even got a DJ with. I don't know why I'm telling you about this. It's too late to sign up or anything. But
come.
No, you can't. I have a DJ who was a friend, DJ'd in college, and he's coming with his lights and equipment, and your disco balls is going to be right. But I just want to point out we have this giant, colorful box in front of us, and we're talking about kids, so I think that's appropriate.
It's totally appropriate.
So what are you looking at this week? Prioritizing youth everywhere, young people.
I have the
families.
best conversation that I get to have because this comes on the heels of some really meaningful weeks in a row. Not that the whole book isn't meaningful, because it is, but those 3 chapters where Pastor Steve led out with empathy and trying to really listen to one another, but listen to our youth instead of just telling them what our life was like as a young person, but listening to what life is like now. And then the next one, you had this conversation about being a welcoming congregation. And what does that mean, to be welcoming? I got to preach then on taking Jesus seriously. I think I just took them out of order, but taking Jesus seriously. And then we talk about prioritizing young people and their families everywhere. That's a 24/7 request, not a sometime. And it's built up to this moment. It is really, if we're listening to youth and we're involved with youth, and youth is very relative. You challenged us last Sunday, and at first I kind of giggled about it, and then it was a little truth serum. You said, find 2 people that are younger than yourself and say hello. And I'm used to being with all the young people, but I didn't realize even I could say hello to 2 young people that are younger than me. And that was both a really good conviction and also a challenge. And I found myself using that throughout my day then, even when I went shopping, wherever I went. I think we're in a society now where we're so scared to even make eye contact with a child. Right? And we're letting that fear take away common sense of hello, thank you. And a young person opened a door for me, and I told them it was thoughtful. That was a thoughtful gesture. And they were beaming ear to ear. And the mom looked back at me and, thank you for saying that to my son. He's not used to hearing that. So that challenge really leads us into this week's challenge of how to prioritize young people. And I think the one big thing you and I have talked about, and we've talked about in program staff and so forth, is we want the to-do list now, right? We want a roadmap. You say to prioritize families. This book is giving us all that information. So now we want to follow their success plan. And what they're really saying is you got to create a successful plan that works in your context the best. And so that's really I've been really struggling with recently. I just want to share with you, I had my sermon ready to talk with Pastor Craig about. I've been gearing my day towards being here with him. And all of a sudden I looked at my wrist. And I was driving, so I had my hand on the wheels, 2 and 10, for those who are driving or in the land of driver's ed. And I looked at my bracelets, and I have 3 bracelets that I never take off. First bracelet, it was made by a young man in Tanzania on our trip, a young man that in the rest of the world would have really struggled. He was in an artist community, and there he is. He is wheelchair-bound, and he's making a bracelet, but he invited me to make it with him. I've never taken it off now since August of our trip. The next bracelet I have is my first Lutheran bracelet where it says, love to love others. And inside it's got the scripture that motivates and actually commands us to do so.
My kids haven't taken theirs off either. They said, Dad, why'd you take yours off? I said, it was for Lent, and Lent is over, but they're still wearing theirs. And
it was cool at meal packing. I was still handing them out, and how many people said, I already have mine on, and it was awesome. The last bracelet I have is one that one of my granddaughters made for me. And I kind of giggle because at nighttime, when I put it on the right on the stand, it glows all night long. Because to her, she made a bracelet that glowed in the dark. And when she was making these bracelets, I was sitting next to her and she goes, Nani, because that's what they call me, can I make one for you? Now she made this bracelet and she put in my bracelet, it says Pastor Katie. So my granddaughter somehow knows that I have a role of leadership. And so we started to talk about church. What I realized, she was eager to tell me about her church. She goes to a different community and she wanted me to know what they were doing. And she wanted me to know that she understood what Pastor Katie meant to other kids. The next thing she started asking me about was colors. And I said, I love the color of blue. It reminds me of baptism. At the time she made this for me, we were in the color of purple. We were in Lent. Now, I wear this bracelet for one reason. My granddaughter made it for me. You better believe I'll never take it off. Because yes, if she ever sees that I have it on, I want her to know I value our conversation. I value her. And I see this bracelet just as beautiful as one that's made out of gold or sterling. This one is my granddaughter made it for me. And I wonder, as a congregation, what would it mean if all of us said, you know what, I just want to make sure my granddaughter sees that we value them, that they are heard and seen. And because I think we believe that, and then we come to church and everybody's somebody's grandchild. And I love this. I love that she connected the dots and gave us an opportunity to talk. That's where it's going. Go ahead.
Thank you for sharing that. I like how you wear it and you take it with you everywhere you go. So when you're doing your thing on the school board out at Linn-Mar, or you're doing your stuff here at church, or going into this room or that room or the storeroom, we just got these props out of her. Your grandchild goes with you everywhere. Your grandchild has access to the entire church.
She sure does.
And I think that's what this chapter is really talking about, is that can we open up every door to the church so that in every program and everything we do, we're always taking kids with us. We're always prioritizing them. We're making them number one in that space instead of being an afterthought. Or how do we add them in or add them on? But how do we include them in everything we do from day one?
I'm going to share an example in my sermon this weekend, but my mom, when she was a young mom, at that time there was really only two ways to get out of the house. Right? You went to church, you volunteered at church, or you volunteered at school. And she wasn't a great driver, but she knew how to get to those two places. But my mom would take me to her women's circles. Now, maybe it's because she didn't have childcare, or maybe she just took me along, and I learned how to play quietly, but I played at her feet. I watched these women talk about Scripture. I saw them and heard them how they were going to love on one another and care for one another. They shared stories about their children. And although it was over my head, because I would have been 5 or 6 years old, I knew in that space I was safe, and they always looked forward to seeing me. I was valued when I got there. The other place my mom always took me. And again, maybe she didn't have childcare, or maybe even by accident, a holy accident. She took me along when she went to deliver Meals on Wheels. First Lutheran had a team of people who delivered Meals on Wheels. Now, one I shared with you, my mom's not a great driver. She was very uncomfortable going out of the house a lot, so she took me with her. I got to hand those meals to the elderly that were shut-ins, that maybe I was the only contact with somebody, at least a non-family member. And I stayed. My mom taught me to stay. Now, I'm going to be honest, some of the times I was uncomfortable. My mom stood next to me, and we did it together. I think that stayed with me my whole life. When my kids were little, we went on mission trips, and we went down to Mexico, and we're in the thick of caring for people that have no medical care. And my kids sat with the children at a photo machine. Why? Because most of those kids had never seen a photograph of themselves. When you don't have running water, when you don't have electricity, you don't have a photo. My kids took photos and they sat there for hours talking. Now those same kids of mine are adults, and they're doing it with their kids, or they're doing it with their neighbor, or as young people, they're looking for churches now that take that seriously. I don't even think we did it intentionally, but it was who we were. And it was messy and chaotic, and my mom took me and I took my kids. That's what you do. Here at First Lutheran, that same opportunity continues to exist. It's there, it's right there, but not as an add-on, but as an intentionality.
You mentioned messy. It's messy and chaotic. The book talks about that, how churches that are successful with young people, what's it say, 75% of the interviewees shared that they assist in worship, especially through music. And they volunteer everywhere. They don't call them volunteers, they call them participants because they fully participate. But My point is, it's messy. A task, the author says, a task may not get done or get done as well as if a paid staff member or qualified adult did the work, but it's essential to having these youth and young people, and even if it's messy, even if it's not how we want to have it done, it's more important that they're involved, I think, is what the author is saying, than that something get done right or done to the level that we hope it would be done.
Because those kids, when we're messing around in their things, are thinking if we could just do it right. So like playing Legos, right? On Sunday morning, the kids play Legos. And what do? I plop myself down. And I realize they're looking at me going, how do you not know how to make a Star Wars ship out of these Legos? And I'm just happy to, be matching colors kind of thing. And they're looking at me thinking, think bigger, dream bigger. And they have to be patient now with me. And again, in the book, it says, churches growing young prioritize young people not just for the sake of making young people happy, but because the whole church benefits. One pastor over 40 years put it like this: everyone rises when you focus on children and teens. That is huge. Everyone rises. No one is made lesser because we're lifting this up. Instead, we're lifting something up because maybe it's been left behind.
Yeah, there's one illustration there. I don't know if you're going to do anything with it, but it really spoke to me about how there was an initiative to go out and do this exercise, this run, this early morning run, and the church had to get up and go do this to be with these young families that were out there running to kind of be this ministry. And the author said, we had to make it a priority to do this. And he said the level of priority we witnessed in churches that grow young, it's not the occasional, I felt like it in the morning, I'll get up and run tomorrow, but the steady commitment that sets out the clothing the night before, checks the alarm clock, and makes sure it happens day after day, week after week. The author says these churches have made prioritizing young people a lifestyle commitment, and the people know it. To me, I love that illustration, is it takes intentionality. You can't just happen your way into prioritizing young people everywhere. You have to be intentional and do the things that you need to do in the background so that this is your first.
And you practice, and we're going to get it wrong. And you practice and practice. This isn't about shaming us into we haven't been doing something. It's about intentionality, and it's a different focus. It's about listening to that Holy Spirit nudge say, this isn't the future of the church. The church is filled with families. The church is. How do we know? Look around. How did we get here? I was baptized in this church. Why? Because my family at that time of 7 called this home. Why? Because my dad's family called this home. These generations upon generations are here. New families coming in all the time, looking around the room saying, something exciting is happening. Something holy happens here. Look and see. And in that, it's contagious.
It is contagious. You could make an argument it starts with you. I mean, you and Michael are the catalysts that started, and I tried to fight against this. And people last week, we talked about feeling a warm community. One of our ad hoc small groups said, well, we got great leaders, Pastor Katie and Michael. And I tried to fight back and say, yeah, but it's not just about the people you hire. It's going to take all of us friends to fuel a warm community. But in some essence, what I'm hearing you say, Pastor Katie, is it's contagious. It's got to start with somebody or someone. Even if it's a lay person. Look at Michelle Klein and Meals from the Heartland. It came from a lay person, and that's where it started, and it just got contagious from there. But it takes someone to step forward like Michelle or like yourself and say, we're going to prioritize kids at all costs. And if it costs us, paying attention or something to an older program or something that's beloved, but we have to do this.
And we have to ask the question. This is not about casting out anything we do. This is about adding or valuing the things that sometimes are silent, right? Because the kids are out of the way, the seen, not heard kind of thing. And instead, we want kids to be seen, heard, and valued. And when I say kids, I still say my kids. My kids are now 35-ish. And they're
mature.
Yeah, thank you. They're my kids.
They're mature children.
There you go. They're my kids. But my kids are raising kids. Or they're facing questions that I faced. And I can fill all of their questions up with my answers or my experience. Or I can listen knowing I have experience. A wise person once said, we listen to one another with curiosity. We honor one another's stories. We don't have to start a story to solve the story. We honor the story. We celebrate what we have in common, even if it means you're just managing that loudly in your own head. And you learn about others. What do they love? And you see the fullness of one another, not what you expect or want, but who they are. This week I was privileged to meet with lots of different stories and of all ages. It started last week. If you had gone into meal packing, we had people 80 plus years difference in age. Our youngest one was a preschooler sitting on someone's hip, and our oldest was sitting in a chair packing because that was within arm's reach. There was people all over the place, and my favorite was the grandma holding the little one so the little one could reach over and pour in the rice. It was feeding the hungry. God calls us to feed the hungry, not the experienced to feed the hungry necessarily, but it's the old gift those who have said yes, not just call on the gifted. It's messy. It's all over the place. On-the-job training with the best boss in the world, which is God, and God is a gracious God. It did take longer. There were teams, though, of professionals. I call them professionals, are people who came in the middle of the afternoon, and they're used to working hard in their office. And there was a little competitiveness, not going to lie. The youth came, and they were just having fun.
Yeah.
The adults came and like, how many more bags can we pack than the other table?
I think we could have done this easily through our outreach teams and used a bunch of adults. But you have to be intentional, right, about saying we want this to be an intergenerational ministry. We want those toddlers on hips and the young people. We want the messiness and not the way we would do it. It takes intentionality to do that, right?
It sure does. The intentionality, the fun thing about this, very messy. One of the individuals who was in the thick of all what we were doing and saw all the different ages come through, all this different skill levels come through, they're already going to try and do this at their place of work. Not only at work, but with their workers' families. That's what we're called to do, right? We're called to be a light. And in that light, it doesn't have to happen here in this building. But somebody saw a spark and within the next morning ran to their HR department and said, I think I have an experience we should all share. And I'd like those folks to bring in their families. Come on, it doesn't get much sweeter than that. That's the truly holy nudge, right? And it's what you get back to saying, that guy, that person is being the light of Jesus Christ without having to throw Jesus around, without having to shame anyone, without having to belittle anyone, instead lifting up those most vulnerable, the hungry, and saying we can make a difference here. The intentionality now, he's taking it the next step.
Isn't that your gospel this weekend is Jesus says, let the little children come to me?
Yes, it is. By how convenient was that's the scripture, by the way. And, let the children come to me. I think we can read that in many ways, too, not just by age, but people who are in need of being not forgotten, not left beside, the ones on the margins that often we just take the stream going forward and we forget, look to the side. Who's not going with us? But I'm going to challenge us one farther this week. If all we do is lift up the kids and the youth, that's all we do, that'd be lovely. But who's lifting them up? Who's mentoring them? Who's encouraging them? I'm going to encourage us to use this language this week. We want to step up and step in together, not step up as some of us experienced individuals, not step up and step back. That's not what this book has been about. It's been about stepping up and looking out for one another, by mentoring one another, by seeing the value as equal with one another, and then together step forward. So we stand up, step forward together, not the tendency or the exhaustion of, but I've already done this. I raised my children. In the scriptures, Jesus is calling us, bring all the children to me. And it's the disciples, some of them young men themselves, calling them out. Leave no one behind. I think that we can do that without shame, but instead with inspiration, with intentionality, with joy. Just do it with a sense of, look what we can do and what can we do together.
Sounds like a great message already forming. Thanks for being with us today, Pastor Katie.
It's always good. Thank you very much.
And that's digging into the Word. It's time to pray our way through the week. Would you join with me in an attitude of prayer? Lord, you sanctify us in your truth. Your word is truth. Help us to prioritize youth and young families in all we do and send your church out into the world to spread your love and joy. Your creation groans under the strain of pollution. Preserve melting glaciers and dwindling forests. Bolster those who work for climate justice and help us all to be good and faithful stewards of your creation. Your people seek wisdom, understanding, and peace. Guide all those who govern and inspire them to work on behalf of the most vulnerable in our midst. Keep safe first responders, those serving in the military, and those whose duty it is to protect others. Your children need your loving care. Protect them from all harm, comfort those in any affliction, support those who grieve, and bring solace to those near death. Your Spirit lives within us here. Inspire the work of our congregation and unite us as one. Bless all the mothers in our midst. Console those for whom the coming days are difficult, and gather us all under the care of your loving wings. Your saints dwell with you in light. Keep us ever thankful of those who have gone before us in faith. Inspire us by their witness. Into your hands, most merciful God, we commend all for whom we pray, trusting in your abiding love through Jesus Christ, our resurrected and living Lord. Amen. Well, that just about wraps up things for today. It is episode 52 in our podcast, which means next week is our 53rd episode. It will have our 1-year anniversary. Hard to believe we've been doing this for 1 year. We appreciate you being with us, no matter what length of time you're with us. You know, I looked up what is the traditional 1-year anniversary gift if you and I were to get a gift for each other. And it says this is according to the internet, the first ever anniversary, on your first ever anniversary, paper represents the traditional gift. The threads within paper symbolize the strength and connectivity of your blossoming relationship. Paper is also a blank slate, a reference to the beginnings of a new life together. Well, that seems to be just about appropriate. We have new life in Jesus Christ, and new life is springing all around us this spring with the greenery and the rain and all the animals coming out, the birds singing. It's just a wonderful time to be alive, and we are so grateful to God that we are alive and that you are with us this day and that you are out there and spreading the gospel in ways that are relevant to you. Know how much you are loved by God and by each and every one of us. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember to put your faith first.